All right. I think we left off, we were fixing to start on Article 6, leaves of absence, if I'm not mistaken.
That is 89.
All right. First section deals with holidays. The current ordinance has 10 holidays listed. This new one also has 10 holidays as well. It's the same holidays. Not a lot changed in that. Any questions on the holidays?
Raise your question. Motion.
Annual leave accruals, everything's the same with that as well. It's presented in a table format, so it's a little easier to read. And it shows an average accrued per month instead of total hours per year. That's really the only difference there.
There were some questions raised by the firemen. We addressed those questions in a memo back to them, but we do not recommend any changes to the accumulation of annual leave or sick leave. We recommend carrying forward the policy that we have currently.
Sick leave, the accruals are the same, the carryover, maximum carryover is the same, current ordinance.
So recommend any changes on sick leave.
What is the part reading about the donation?
That is later.
This,
Okay.
yeah, that's later in the book.
We'll get to that. Funeral leave, up to 24 hours. The proposed ordinance shortens the list. The existing funeral leave policy is very, very wide, very broad. Kind of narrowed that down a little bit as to who you can use funeral leave for.
I've got a question about that. It's 24 hours, that's just the time frame they get in the event of death of the family?
That would be a total of 24 hours of paid time off. So for an 8-hour employee, that's 3 days.
3 days, okay.
For an employee that works 12-hour shifts, that's 2 12-hour shifts. Firefighters are 1 shift.
24 hours.
Any questions? Administrative leave in section 15, that's, the second part of that is part of the current ordinance that deals with leave for employees of voluntary emergency service organizations. I'm combining that with what we're doing now as far as flexibility for county manager and elected officials to approve 4 hours of paid administrative leave. What we're doing now is, and the board can approve this, things like employee goes to donate blood at our blood drives as an incentive and a reward for them to do that. We provide paid leave if they donate. We've been doing that. It's very successful in trying to get employees to donate. So what we're doing is combining that and putting in the private administrative leave. Leave of absence without pay section. It's a bit more detail about how we handle leave of absence without pay. What we're doing now. Make sure that we're complying with FMLA as well as the Disabilities Act, and it's clear on how we're handling leave class and pay. Hopefully gives us consistency in how we're doing that.
This is what we went over with you at the retreat, because we had this in the next protective order, section 17, leave of absence without paid continuation of benefits. Because in prior years, someone could be on leave without pay for a year or more, and we continued to pay the benefits. The new policy is, that the county pays it,
First 12 weeks.
for the first 12 weeks. And then they pick it up.
Unless it's over the requirement.
Unless it's required by FMLA or something like that. That's a considerable expense because we've had numerous individuals out with, and this is non-workers' comp related. If it's workers' comp related, it's a whole different story. But if it's non-workers' comp related, it's 12 weeks.
And speaking of workers' comp, that is the next section. I believe this outlines what we're going to do with workers' comp.
I've had a little mistake on.
There's no changes to that, correct?
Section 19 is military leave, and this outlines, actually brings us current with federal law on USERRA, the Uniform Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. And there have been a couple of changes in that law, so this brings us current with that.
Questions? All right. On.
Section 20 is civil leave, and this is when a full-time employee is called for jury duty, as a court witness for a government or subdivision of that state government. During their scheduled time, we pay civil leave, so they don't have to take annual leave or something like that. It's a paid time if they're called as a witness or serve on jury duty. One thing that has come up since this draft has come to you, I just want to get some feedback. Normally jury duty is during the daytime. We have employees that work night shift, so if they go into work at 6 o'clock in the evening, they're at 6 in the morning. The questions come up is, how do we want to handle it? If they get off at 6 in the morning, and they're normally off that next day, but they get called for jury duty. Maybe they have to go in at 6 o'clock that night.
I would be concerned, I think you probably should allow them to have to leave. I'm just speaking for myself because that employee needs to rest. In other words, if they were up the night before, they're on jury duty that day, and then they're expecting them to work that night, they're not gonna have had any sleep.
Right.
And depending on what their position is or what they're doing, I mean, they're gonna be getting paid to sleep on the job, or, you know, somebody can get hurt, so.
Right, and so that has come up, so I'm asking the board, how do you want to handle that?
Y'all think, I mean, that's what I.
If they have to go back in that evening, do we give them time off for that full shift, or how much that shift?
You know, because of the release from jury duty.
Correct. I mean, it depends if they've had enough time to get rest. If they've been released at noon, or if they've been released at 10 o'clock in the morning, they may have time to get rest. If they get released at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they have not. So,
Can you ask, you
saying they wouldn't get mine.
I would really can't ask an employee to take care of the
Well, who do we have that works at night?
Fire department.
Fire department, CI, sheriff's department, jail.
But the
911.
fire department is, they're 24 hours, right?
That's correct.
So if they're on jury duty during the day, why would we expect them to come and go to work after jury is over? I mean, generally, if somebody works during the day and they're on jury duty, they're there the summation of their workday, right?
What do you mean?
If you come in here and work in the office here, you go to jury duty and report it. You don't come here at 8 o'clock and then report at the jury duty place at 8:30 and stay over there all day until they dismiss or whatever, and then come back to work. So why would you expect a fireman?
Whoa. Yes, you do.
If the employee reports to jury duty at 8:30, and they're released at 10:30,
You're expected
you're
to.
expected to come back to work.
Okay, so but the policy says that you get paid your regular pay, then any money you get paid for jury duty, you have to turn over to the county?
No, you
No.
don't.
Okay, that's not what I read in here.
I think it's-
Where'd you say that was on? 101?
102.
102 at the bottom. Any employee may keep fees and travel allowances received for jury or witness duty in addition to regular compensation. Unless you're doing it under official duty.
In connection with his or her official duties.
So the real issue is if an employee, for me, the real issue is if the employee's on jury duty. Let's say they're called jury duty today.
Mhm.
So they show up at the courthouse, but they're going to report to work at 6 o'clock this evening. Today, this would be a time they would normally sleep so they could work all night. If they're in,
If they'll be up and ready to go to.
right, how much of it would be,
Could you say they would be given an equivalent amount of time off? That, in other words, if they came for jury duty that day and they were only there for 2 hours and then left, they would report to work at 8 o'clock or instead of 6 o'clock. They,
You'd have to get somebody to fill in for them.
Well, I mean,
That's
that's
six o'clock, so
like,
that'd be-
you know,
you
that you-
just need to take the time off, man.
What are you saying if they go, if they're supposed to work 24 hours, say they work 24
well,
hours?
no, what we were using was an example, like say if they work a 12-hour shift, but they go in at 6 o'clock in the evening.
Mhm.
But that the morning, they have to report for jury duty at 8:30.
Some time to be spent.
Well, if they're only at jury duty for 2 hours and then go home,
they're done.
how much time, right, how much time off do we give them? Do we give them just 2 hours, or if they're there for 4 hours, or 6 hours? I mean,
And
I
how are
think
you
that's-
gonna know?
I mean, the court report will know when they're released. They give tell us when that juror is released.
Yeah, but who's gonna go back and do all this checking? I mean, you're talking about personnel doing this.
I think what they're trying to find out is what's fair and equitable, because if an employee that works from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock goes over there for jury duty, they're expected to come to work at 8 o'clock if they're gonna report over there at 8:30 or 9, and they will leave here and then go over for jury duty. But if they're only there for 2 hours, then they're expected to come back to their workstation and complete the rest of their day.
Right.
So they're trying to measure that against the other scenario is in trying to make it fair and equitable. That's what they're trying to do.
And I understand your scenario for a 12-hour shift. But what about if you're on a 24-hour shift? What do you do?
The firefighters, I mean, if they go for jury duty, then whatever hours they're at jury duty, then they go back to the fire station and report. Is that not right?
I would.
Somebody's gotta be there while he's gone though, cause
Yeah.
he's gone, they gotta make plans for somebody to be there, while he, I mean, fire, like to be, keep the books up there.
mean, it's just, you know, the department, in whichever the scenario, the department or whomever is gonna have to
Yeah, the supervisor's in charge
They're
of
gonna have
making sure
to-
their staff, correct?
staff correctly, and
Chief here,
No, so he's in Savannah.
Jamie, excuse me, Chief Clark, what, is what Chairman Gardner said correct? If you have jury duty during the day, it's only 2 or 3 hours till they report back to the fire
Yes.
department?
That's what the real issue for me, as I said, is if somebody is on jury duty and they're gonna report to work at evening, we need them to be alert and awake. As how much time between the end of jury duty and the time they report is sufficient time for them to get rest before they report to work. If they have less than X number of hours, then do we need them to report at all, to get them full shift off, or what? I mean, I'm just throwing it out to get the board's feel.
I would think if they got through by 10 o'clock, they'd have enough time, but anytime, after that, they need to take the time off, for them to be, usually they gonna probably be on the jury, they on, after 10 o'clock anyway, they're gonna turn them loose, so.
Sometimes you have to come back every day.
Well, if you do come back every day, you come back the next day, we go back till 8:30 or 9 o'clock the next day.
Does this affect any of the people at the 911?
This one, you've got it, folks at 911, and they work, evening shift or night shift.
short of establishing a policy that says that you will be given 6 hours or 8 hours of leave off for jury duty when you are called. I don't know how,
I don't know how you would.
I don't know any other way. I mean, if you say whether the jury was, you actually had to be there for 2 hours, 4 hours, or whatever, if you just say, okay, you get 8 hours of jury duty today. And that way, it makes it, I guess, equitable that way. I mean, I don't see any other way.
I mean, if you work night shift and you go somewhere and you gotta be awake for 3 hours, it's pretty much shot your,
Oh, yeah.
your schedule for getting into
Yeah.
sleep and, you know, because everything's going and then at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, the kids are coming home, so you really hadn't had enough time to sleep. I mean, my thought would be that if you're called to jury duty and you work the 7-8, 7P to 7A, that they should just probably just be allowed to be off.
So that's taking the shift off.
Or just say 8 hours. I mean,
It's,
how long is a jury typically? I mean, are they over 6 hours?
depends on who calls.
Well, I mean, I understand, but I'm trying to come up with a number.
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
trying to come up,
sometimes it can go to
because see,
5.
I mean, I'm trying to say, if we can come up with a number that we say, okay, whether you're in the fire department, sheriff's department, 911, public works, administration, wherever you are, if you're called for jury duty, you get 6 hours of leave. Or if we need to, 8 hours of leave. And in that way, it will take care, it will allow plenty of time for that individual if they have to, whatever they need to do. I mean,
I think the 8 hours is sufficient. I think that's fair.
we're not talking about a whole lot of employees that are impacted.
No, it doesn't come up very often, but the reason I bring it up is, the current policy, it's written, it assumes you work a daytime shift.
Right.
And it has come up recently where an issue with an employee who's working nights, and we looked at this as, okay, well, how do you apply this? Somebody who works nights, they've done jury duty, and then they were supposed to report that evening at 6. Well, they haven't missed their work because of jury duty.
So they miss their sleep.
Right.
And
So,
if-
I mean, you good with 8 hours?
I mean, if you give them 8 hours, if jury duty ends at 4 or 5, I'm just saying, and you give them 8 hours after that, those are the 8 hours that they're usually awake. So people who work nights can't go to sleep at 6 o'clock at night. That's when they're usually awake.
So if an employee's on let me understand, if an employee's on a 12-hour shift, would they use the other 4 hours as
I think that's gonna be up to the department and schedule.
annual or work?
I mean, you know, you guys are, I mean, maybe you worked night shift before, Chipper, but y'all have never worked night shift. I mean, ask the people who, if there's anybody here who ever worked night shift, it's not that easy to make yourself go to sleep at night, even when people are off that work night shift, they basically stay up all evening. Because that's when they're awake. You can't just make your body go to sleep in the evening just because you got time off.
Well, I mean, what do you suggest?
I mean, I just think that in that instance, since it doesn't really happen that often, that, you know, that they should just get their shift covered. I mean,
Regardless of how long that shift is, 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours?
well, I mean, if you said in the fire department, they can go back and they can, I mean, unless they're called for a fire, they can go to sleep.
Right. And not-
So that doesn't really apply to, I wouldn't think, to them. But people who would, you know, to go to work at 7 o'clock at night, because that's really what we're talking about. People who work from 7 to 8, 7 p. You said it's come up one time. I mean.
It's come up a couple of times.
Let me-
The most
let-
recent is a couple of weeks.
Let me suggest this, Bill. Why don't you touch base with 911, the fire department, the sheriff's office, and the CI about how this impacts them, the different things that we have talked about, and maybe get some feedback from those department heads. Because, I mean, I agree with Gwen, you know, talking about how do you overcome that not getting enough sleep. Because, I mean, you know, in some of these departments, you know, I mean, they're sensitive positions, and, you know, we don't need the person to be there tired. Maybe we can get some recommendations back from them and come back and finalize this one part, or touch base, you know, do something with it later, I mean. Y'all okay with that? I mean, I don't, instead of us sitting here trying to guesstimate how it's gonna impact different departments that have different shifts,
I
different
mean,
conditions.
I think it would be interesting to look at other governmental entities. And what does the state do?
Did Carl Benson say anything, or
What the feds
was
do.
anything about it when they were going through working on this?
No, I did look at some others and other counties in the city, and there's, doesn't address it either, so.
Most of them just
Wasn't a whole
address
lot
it
going on.
based on 8-hour employees, 8 to 5 employees.
And I said, it doesn't come up often, but it did recently, so I put it out there, what do you guys think? And again, it's more than a third jury meeting before they have the report to work. That's where it comes. Okay.
That's where it's,
Any questions on that? All right. Family medical leave.
Family medical leave, this again outlines what we have to do with applying family medical leave. The family medical leave law has actually been amended a couple of times since the existing policy was approved. So we picked up those amendments to make it current.
This prompts me to ask, because we've run into this a couple of other times with different things where it goes, has to do with federal requirements for law. Can we have something as a part of the ordinance that says that the policy, whenever the federal law, we are notified of federal law changes or whatever, that it can be updated automatically and the new law? In other words, it's not anything that we have a decision over as far as our employees, but this is the federal law. Can we go ahead and have it updated then, instead of missing out on one or two changes in the law, and then 10 years from now, when this is being worked on again? I don't know.
Yeah, we need to bring it to you.
Okay.
yeah, this is not like we adopt the Southern Building Code of Congress International as a part of this ordinance. This is family medical leave that applies only to Spalding County, correct?
Oh, yeah, I do have a question. On, B, I think it's on page 106, under Roman numeral 6, it says the reason for FMLA. Everybody see that? It says under 2, a husband and wife who are both eligible for FMLA and both employed by Spalding County may take a combined total of up to 12 weeks for birth, adoption, or placement of foster care of employee's son or daughter. Why, under normal circumstances, if somebody were a single parent, you would let them take 12 weeks of leave? Why would you make 2 employees take 12 weeks together?
That's what Family Medical Leave Act requires. It says if an employee and a spouse work for the same employer, the employer is only obligated to provide 12 weeks total for that event of birth of the child. And however, the parents split it up. Maybe one takes 8 weeks, the other takes 4. Maybe one person takes all 12. The law says you get up to 12.
So that's what
Combined.
the federal law
Yes,
says.
we do.
Um, On page 112, let's see, under employee notice requirement. I think it's like E, where it talks under covered service member, so it's like E. Uh-huh. It says that, you know, when an employee is required to let you know about the leave. What's practicable? Is that a word?
Yes, ma'am. That's
It's a
actually,
federal
a word that's in the
Federal law.
reg itself, so.
That is retarded. Employees are required to give additional notice as soon as practicable. Really?
Yes, ma'am. It's another word for possible.
And so is this word exigent, is that also a federal word?
Where are you at?
There's several references in here to,
Are you talking about exigency?
mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
So you really think that, I mean, I had to look it up. So you really think that our folks gonna know what that means when they read through this? I mean, because I had to try to look up practicable and see if that was a real word, which I couldn't find that. So I'm sure that must be an adjective or adverb. But, it's just, it's some of the terminology in here.
Exigency is leave for a family member in the military, and that's going to be very rare, but that was added as a new type of leave under the Family Medical Leave Act a couple of years ago. So,
Where does that start?
For the medical certification?
Page 113F.
Yeah.
qualifying exigency, if you have, I have to look at what and if an employee's spouse, son, daughter, or parent is a military member and they're in active duty in a foreign country or being called to active duty, qualifying exigency leave can be taken for any one of the following conditions, and that's on page 107.
Mhm.
And it lists the type of things that an employee can take leave for under family medical leave.
Is that only for
That
military,
is only for military.
starting on 107?
And
Reasons for leaving.
reasons for leave would be B, and then D. And there's also military caregiver leave.
All right.
Okay, Mark, now to your section 23, leave sharing, page 116.
Okay, I had a lot of employees wanting to know why they couldn't get more than 40 hours.
You need to remember, and department heads need to remember as well, when you give leave, that employee still gets paid. Not only, we've had several positions where people have been out, had babies, whatever, et cetera, which to me doesn't qualify for share leave, but they'll tell me it does. That, oh, well, she's gonna be out for 12 weeks on shared leave, I need a part-time person. In the past, before we had shared leave, they would be leave without pay after they used up their sick leave, annual leave, or whatever, so you would have lapsed salary funds to take care of a part-time person. Now, there's no lapsed salary funds whatsoever. If you have a lot of people out on shared leave, you're still paying them, and then you've got to pull people in and pay them overtime or whatever to cover those shifts. So that's why we limited it to 40 hours, one of the reasons.
But if people have earned leave, they're gonna get paid for that anyway. I mean, is there some rules that say?
Only annually.
Right, so, I mean, you can't share, what are we talking about, sharing sick leave?
They was concerned about, they were losing at the end of the year, because you only carry so much over, and they were saying,
Correct.
we only give 40, but if somebody was bad sick and they need 40 more hours, they don't use it, why couldn't they just give 40 hours? Well, that was the.
Sick leave is a benefit,
Well, it's
it's not a
benefit.
given. And I understand where that's coming from, but on the monetary side and on the management side,
But who
Yeah.
who is doing their work anyway? I mean, if they're out sick, y'all won't hire anybody.
so other people have, let's just say, a fireman, if they're out sick, they gotta call in somebody to fill that slot. Sheriff's deputies, if they've got somebody in the jail, they've gotta cover that slot. You can't just say, oh, we're gonna be short, 6 people in the jail today, so y'all gonna have to watch twice as many inmates. You can't say, oh, we won't run the truck at daylight today because we don't have people to staff the truck.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, which means that somebody will have to work over or something won't get done. And which, in many cases, I don't have a problem with the department head, prioritizing what needs to get done. But at the end of the day, it could actually be any one of those people who are still working or any one of those people who are working overtime who may need that assistance while they're out sick. And, I mean, we talked earlier about the fact that, it is a benefit. The sick leave is a benefit. But if you're a person who's never missed work, who's come to work sick, you got all these hours of sick leave, and at the end of the year, you gotta get some back, or you've reached the maximum that you can approve, then you're just working without that benefit. We don't allow people we don't do a leave buyback, we don't do,
Well, we used to when we had money. We used to buy back up to 40 hours of annual leave, never buy back sick leave. Never buy back sick leave. But we used to buy or pay for up to 40 hours of annual leave when we had money, but,
At what rate did you pay for it?
dollar for dollar.
Well, I mean, that's not the standard. I mean, but I'm just saying, the standard is generally you buy it back for less than what it is, if the person doesn't want to lose it or if they want to sell it. But, I mean, I just think it's wrong for them to have accrued this quote-unquote benefit from working here, and then it's just basically dumped in the trash because they're not sick. So we really need to figure out a way for them to either be compensated for that or for them to allow, to be able to give it to someone else. I know you said that when people get paid leave, they accrue, time, but maybe when you give the leave away to people, maybe you should be able to accrue any annual leave based on that time or other benefits, because it's a gift. It's not worked out. I mean, we need to figure out something, because I think that if people want to give away more leave, they should be able to do that, because at the end of the day, you know, somebody, if you don't show up, Chad's gonna have to run down here and try to figure out what to do. I mean, that's just how it works. But, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think we need to work on that, because that means that some people are continuously getting a benefit and others are not getting the benefit of the benefit because they're healthy. You know, they could just say, okay, well, I'm gonna be out sick for a month because I got all this sick leave and I don't want to give it away. So then, I mean, what's to stop them from calling in sick once a week or twice a week?
The requirement for a doctor's excuse.
So every
What we're looking for, we're going to do some kind of reasonable amount as to, how much is a reasonable amount that an employee could donate up to. The 40 hours was what, when this was originally put together, the 40 hours was that limit. So if we want a different number in there, as opposed to 40,
I mean, I don't have a problem myself with changing that number and seeing how it works out for us. But my concern is all of those people who lose that benefit because they don't take it.
And do we have a number, like a rounded up, an average number of what we're talking about as far as hours we're going? As far as the hours being donated, hours being donated, is there we're saying 40 hours is not enough, or is?
Right.
Okay, so what is the average? Is there an average?
That people
It
donate.
doesn't have, leave donations don't happen all the time. We probably get maybe 8 over the course of the year. The amount of time that's needed is going to vary. Some of them might be a request for 80 hours, some might be a request for 40. Some of them might be a request because the employee's going to be out a long time, and that request is for the maximum of 480 hours. So,
An individual can request up to 480 hours.
Up to
up to
40. 40-hour limit is per employee.
12 weeks,
With
3 months.
so
The
if
40-hour limit is per employee
per
donated.
employee donated, so if you've got 12 employees that donate 40 hours in that,
To that person?
to that person.
Yes, just strictly to a person. We don't have a bank, it's strictly to a person. And we put it to a person instead of a bank because, like he said, it only comes up infrequently. And it varies from person to person, the severity, the acts, whatever it is, the event that has caused the request. Because you don't want somebody that, say, Bill's here every day and doesn't use it, obviously, but William uses his 8 hours like we do have some employees who do that. We use it up by the end of the month because they know they're going to get another 8 hours the next. And then I get sick and I need 480 hours of annual leave because I got to go for chemo. If I was Bill, I wouldn't give me any leave.
Well, yeah, and that's up to the individual.
Right, that's why we didn't do a bank, though, that's what because a bank, you automatically.
I have no problem with that. I think you gives an individual.
Yeah, individual pay.
But, I mean, even, even if we had no one, which would be great, that had a catastrophic illness, then we still got people, some people who've been here 15 years, 20 years, never been sick, always come to work every day, who've reached the maximum of what, 960 hours? So if they earn, what's the total per year? 96 hours annually, maybe for the last 5 years, they've had to give away or lose 96 hours. That's a lot. I mean, that's 450 hours, that's 12 weeks of pay, supposed pay, of a benefit that they've given back. I mean, even at that, I think that we should look into the financial end of, at least allowing them to sell back, even if we only buy it back at 50%. Because at least we know that it's not out there, but at least they get something for their benefit. I mean, it's their benefit. I mean, I see what you're saying, I know you're talking about
We
the
were doing
money.
that with
What about
Annual
the
at one time, but the
levy?
Board of Commissioners decided that we didn't want to fund that anymore.
Well,
We didn't have money.
We didn't have money. We still don't have money.
No, let me just say this.
Might be something you could look at if you had money.
This is a different story. Yeah, this is a different story. The problem I'm having with buying back annual leave is this, is that when people take annual leave, which is, paid time off, that they still accrue leave time while they're on annual leave. They still accrue sick time. So, I don't get that. But if you can sell your sick time back, it's sick time. So, I mean, I'm just saying, what's the difference in annual, what's the difference in sick? But people aren't losing their annual leave. I mean, are people
Yes.
losing their annual leave?
Yes, it happens every year, yes, ma'am.
I mean, how many people out of 450 are losing their annual leave because they don't go on vacation?
Probably 20.
Well, they get offset, then they're gonna use that for use that, and they lose that every year. They got.
Those are offset too, if you're exempt.
Well, how many people are losing sick leave?
Not many, I don't think, because that's a larger number, because that many people that are at that.
Okay, suggestion. And I'm just gonna throw it out there, I don't know how way off the porch this is, okay? So in order to actually maybe compensate those, okay, that actually have accrued this period of time, and no, we don't have the money. What else could we, as a matter, I'm thinking like maybe, I don't have the money here either, but maybe we could be a little more flexible as far as giving into a retirement plan. Or doing something additional to reward that person, that they've worked so long.
What some entities do on the annual leave portion is give you credit towards your retirement. But all you're doing is deferring that money out there. And generally at retirement, their salary is higher than it was when they earned it. So you're paying more for it at the end. If you say you can carry over anything over 480 goes towards your retirement. You work here 15 years and you never take a vacation, so, at the end you got 7 months of quote unquote unused leave. Not only does the county have to pay you that 7 months, but it can allow you to, leave the job 7 months early and keep drawing a paycheck. Well, from my monetary standpoint, I've got to hire somebody, if Bill leaves, I've got to hire somebody to take Bill's place, so I'm double paying for it.
That time.
But
Drag it
if
out
that's,
6 months, so hire somebody.
if that's built into the system and you know that is how
Right,
it's going
you know
to
it's gonna
work,
happen.
that can also
Then
be
you
an
can plan
incentive,
for
it.
that can also be an incentive to the employees as far as their retirement.
I mean, it's just a way of giving back somehow.
I mean, we're talking about, as of now, we have to actually count what we're putting in the retirement plan as part of our liabilities and part of our assets, correct?
As of fiscal year 15, yes.
Okay, so why wouldn't we do that with the money, the time that people would roll over to their retirement?
Sick leave doesn't count as an unfunded liability because the employer right now has no obligation to pay that at separation. Annually, we do, so the annual leave has to be booked as an unfunded liability.
It is already booked and has been booked for many years on our capital, on our audit. The amount of leave payable if the county closed June 30th, that's
That's
already
already budgeted.
booked. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but not the sick leave.
No, ma'am.
No,
Well, see,
you're not required to provide sick leave.
well, that's my point. You're providing X number of hours to some folks, and then some folks gotta give it away. So I think that you don't,
It's there for an emergency.
I understand that, but other people, if somebody takes their 8 hours every month, because they're gonna accrue 8 hours every month, and someone I call model employee comes to work every day, they come to work when they got the flu, they come to work when they sprain their ankle, they come to work when they got a backache, you're not rewarding them for being good stewards. You're taking their benefit away because they come to work. I just see that as counterproductive. And I really think we just need to look at some way to be able to give them that benefit back in some fashion, in some portion, not to just give it away, make them just lose it.
Let me ask this question. Why do we have a maximum number of hours of sick leave that an employee can accrue? If most employees do not accrue the maximum,
They can't use it, if they don't use it, they
I'm
can't take it.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Let me give you background on the number of hours on the sick leave and why that cap is there. The sick leave, if an employee is out for an extended period of time, the thought process was the number of hours of sick leave will carry the employee until they are eligible for long-term disability, which is 6 months.
And the
From
county used to
that
pay
point,
100% of
we
long-term
provide long-term
disability.
So at that point, the employee, if they're still out, now they become eligible for long-term disability. And the sick leave would carry them up to that point. So that's the background on the hours that are in there now.
It's really been cut off at 900.
Yes. And everywhere I've worked, there's been a cap. It's varied, but there's been a cap.
But some employees may not opt to buy the long-term disability. They have to purchase that themselves now, right?
Now that it is,
Okay, so if you've got 1,500 hours of sick leave, you may not need to be, and you didn't purchase long-term disability, that would carry you through much longer. Heaven forbid that someone gets that ill and can't, and need that, but I just think it's wrong for us to have people to earn a benefit and not be able to have it available to use if they need it. Because if the fact remains that they work the entire time they're here and they got 2,500 hours of sick leave, and they leave the next day, that is just wiped off the slate, correct?
it's just gonna go